There's a finny. There's a fin. Yep, okay. This is my life. There are always dogs. Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. I'm TG Kelly, and despite the very Christmassy background I've got going on right now, and you can probably hear my dog in the background as well, jingling, we are going to talk today about Poshmark. About 10 years ago, I switched jobs. I went from having a pretty formal professional wardrobe to having something much more casual. And well, as exciting as it was to be able to buy all these new clothes and have a reason to buy all these new clothes, I was living in a tiny apartment with an even tinier closet. And I knew that not only did I want to get rid of the clothes that I had, I wanted to make a little bit of money back because they were professional clothes and they were more expensive. So I did some searching. I didn't really want to go the eBay route. I'd never done anything like that, but I found Poshmark. So I very briefly sold some stuff on Poshmark. There are plenty of other videos out there about selling on Poshmark and how to do that successfully. I haven't done that in a very long time, so that is not what I'm talking about today. But after I sold what I wanted to sell, I got into buying on Poshmark. So if you're not familiar with what Poshmark is, it is basically a reselling app. It's like Depop or eBay, just happens to be the app that I have used for years. And it's generally either people like I was who are trying to clean out their closet or bought something for an event that didn't happen, something like that. They have clothes that are in great condition, or clothes, housewares, really anything at this point, that are in great condition and that they want to make a little bit of money off or just make sure it goes to a good home. And then there's also resellers on the app. So people who go to Goodwill or whatever thrift store in their area and buy vintage thrifted clothing and resell it on the app. So you get kind of both of those. There are boutiques within the app as well, but that's a whole different story. We'll talk about that a little bit later. Like I said, I've been using the app about 10 years, very briefly as a seller, and then I have bought everything from my first and only pair of Gucci loafers on Poshmark to pieces of my Christmas china that I couldn't find anyplace else, resold on Poshmark. So runs the gamut. There's a little bit of a learning curve on how to really use Poshmark effectively, but that's what I'm here for, because I truly think it's, if you're looking to build out a wardrobe, revamp your wardrobe, clean out your wardrobe, build up collections of things that you have that you want to collect, it's a really great tool, and it's a great way to get what you're looking for, save some money, if you know what you're doing. So that is my goal with this video, is to kind of walk you through the things that I have learned over the past 10-ish years of using Poshmark and give you some tips and tricks. The first tip that I have for you when you're opening up your Poshmark app is knowing whether you're there to search or whether you're there to scroll. And I'll start with searching because that's pretty obvious, but searching is when you have done your research out in the marketplace. So you've gone onto a website, a brand's website, you've figured out exactly what it is you want. So personal example, the first time I ever bought anything luxury was on Poshmark for myself, and it was a pair of Gucci loafers from my first like big girl bonus. And I went on Gucci's website, I went on eBay, reviews, I could see exactly what the name and the SKU number of the product was that I wanted, the size, the color, all of that. So I went in knowing exactly what I wanted. I knew kind of the condition I was willing to accept to get the discount that I wanted, and I was able to find exactly what I was looking for within maybe 5 minutes of searching. Now, that's not always going to happen, but I will say, especially as someone who likes to think she has, you know, unique style and no one could ever be looking for what I'm looking for, I've never, or I shouldn't say never, but very rarely not been able to find exactly what I'm looking for on Poshmark, because it's a huge platform and there's people across the country using it, maybe across the world, I'm honestly not sure. So you're going to find what you're looking for most of the time. Where you can get tripped up is not knowing exactly what you're looking for. So if you're there to search for a specific thing, you need to know all of the specifics, the brand, the item name, the description, the size, color, style. If there's a SKU number, if it's something that's still available on a website like Gucci or J. Crew or wherever, you can usually find a SKU in the website description. And sometimes, if it's a really experienced seller, they will also include that SKU, so you can search by that. So do your research, be prepared, and also be picky. I think there's a little bit of a thrill when you're searching for something specific that you're not sure you're gonna find and there's like 10 results. It's also, I think, second nature to go for the least expensive of those results, but it's pretty common for the least expensive to be obviously the worst condition. Now that doesn't mean that it's unusable or unwearable or whatever it is, but just bear in mind that if there's a reason, there's just like in regular retail, there's a reason that one is $200 less than the other. So be realistic about what you're willing to pay, and don't just get that excited like, oh my gosh, those Chanel flats are only $85. That did happen to me once, and I ordered them, and let me tell you, there's a reason that those Chanel flats are only $85 because they were completely worn out. The pictures kind of blurred it a little bit. I would say fudged the photos a little bit because the soles were just completely unwearable, and it wasn't an expensive fix, and it ended up being worthwhile, just going to a cobbler. But don't just get that like, oh my gosh, I can get Gucci loafers for $250, because you're probably going to spend another $250, $300 to get them to a point that's wearable. If that's what you want to do, Poshmark's also a great place for that. But be realistic about your price. Verify details that seem too good to be true. Sometimes they are. I will say, and I'll probably touch on this again, I haven't had many scammers, like outright scammers, if any, but I have had maybe some people who didn't include every piece of every detail of wear and tear on an item. So just study the pictures. If something looks too good to be true, it probably is, and there's probably another option that will be more in line with what you're wanting at your price point. So if that's searching, scrolling is more like going into your local whatever store and browsing and looking through the racks. So I will say that for scrolling, the Posh algorithm isn't that great on its own. You need to kind of treat it like a ChatGPT prompt, in that when you open the app and you just kind of get your home feed, at least, and I've been using it a while, it should be pretty well attuned to what I'm looking for. You're not just going to be shown things that are really in line. They tend to show you more what's trending right now, what's getting a lot of traction, which sometimes is not anything close to what you're looking for. But if you treat the search bar almost more like a ChatGPT prompt when you're really looking to just scroll and see what's out there, I think it's pretty useful. So the beauty of Posh, even if their algorithm isn't that great, is that their filters are fantastic. And I will get into that in more detail in a second. But if you lean really heavily on those filters and then use really high level search terms like vintage blazer, you're gonna find some cool stuff. For example, I earlier this fall knew that I wanted some kind of a leather jacket. I have moto jackets, but as we all know, those are kind of out of style right now, and mine was really thick and heavy, and I live in Georgia, so it's not that great all the time. So I wanted something that was kind of vintage 90s blazer kind of a feel, and I ended up just searching vintage leather blazer, and because I had the right filters in place, and because I was searching in the market that applied to my size group and what I wanted, I was able to find very easily a gorgeous, like, kind of cranberry burgundy leather blazer for like $65, I think was the original asking price, so it came down a little bit by the time I was done. And it was exactly what I was looking for, did not take a lot of time to find, and I never, probably because I know myself, would never have just gone looking for a cranberry leather blazer because I tend to look for more neutrals. But I've worn it many, many times already. I like it so much more than I think I would have like a black or a camel or something like that, camel colored jacket. And I think it's just a great example of how just using that really abstract language if you're not searching for something specific, can bring up some really good results in the app. So that brings me to tip number 2, which is to know your filters. Touched on this in the last tip, but I would say up and down, filters are Poshmark's biggest strength. They are kind of, think of it as a funnel. They start from very broad, which is kind of their, they call them markets, but it's basically their categories. So there's women's, men's, home, children, luxury, plus size, which I love. So you start there. That's kind of the top of your funnel. And then you kind of layer other filters on top of that. So you kind of narrow down the funnel. So things like size, color, condition, if you're looking for something that's brand new, if you're looking for something that's vintage, if you're willing to accept something that's been used but is still in really good condition, like looks like it's just been in your closet for a little bit. And then seller type, which is boutique versus closet. Boutique, I'll just be really blunt, I don't like the boutique stuff on Poshmark. I'm sure there are some good boutiques out there, but everything I see is basically the cheap stuff that you could get on Amazon or Temu or something like that. And they are just using Poshmark as their platform. What you really want to look for are closets, because those are resellers and those are people who are just trying to clean out their closet. That's kind of the true Poshmark experience. Other great feature that Poshmark offers in terms of filtering is the My Size filters. So if you're frequently using Poshmark just for yourself, make sure, and I think when you set up your profile, it will prompt you to do this, make sure you set up your My Size filters and keep them up to date. So I believe you're allowed to pick 2 sizes of like dress, shirt, pant, shoe, sweater. I think those are all of them. And they're really helpful just as you're scrolling, because it automatically filters the results based on your My Size. So you can go into the plus size market and just search. One that I do all the time is J. Crew or Anthropologie. Those are my top 2 searches in Poshmark, because those are the things that I wear the most. And frankly, I don't want to be paying for a brand new or store price J. Crew and Anthropologie all the time, but I still want that quality and I still want that style. So I do this all the time. I go into the market that I want, which for me is plus size, and I just type in J. Crew. And because my size filters are all set up, I automatically get all the results, pretty much everything new that has been added from J. Crew in my size since the last time I looked. And it's simple. I don't know if it's as easy as shopping on like the native retail site, but it is very simple. I will say a lot of the complaints that I hear about Poshmark from people are because they're not using their filters properly, because they're just going into whatever market. They don't have their sizes set up, so they're just getting all of the stuff from J. Crew or all of the stuff from Anthropologie. So tip number 3, and I touched a little bit on knowing what condition you're willing to accept, is learning the lingo. So there are, and I'm just going to run through some of these abbreviations, but there's basically a whole Posh language that you kind of have to learn. And if you're familiar with other reseller sites like eBay and things like that, most of this is not, or even Facebook Marketplace, most of this is not new to you, but it is helpful to just kind of know what you're reading, because sellers are trying to cram a lot of information into the headline and the description, and they use a lot of abbreviations and a lot of terms that sometimes just sound weird. So knowing what you're reading is a really good way to make sure you're getting what you want. So a few of these, the ones that I use or I see most regularly, and I'm just going to read these off. NWT, which is new with tags. So that is literally something that is like off the rack from a store or has just been delivered to the person, and maybe has been hanging in their closet with tags on, because we all have that at some point or another. NIB is new in box, and that's kind of the same thing, but it's shoes or dishes or things that have been recently delivered, are in their box and have not been removed or used. NWOT is new without tags. This is the one that I feel like you run into the most, I don't want to say deception, but I think people do fudge it a little bit, because I've definitely gotten some stuff that was new without tags and was definitely like smelled like detergent. So it's been washed. I don't know if it's been worn, but it's been washed. So that one to me is always the one that's a little dubious. Like, okay, why bother putting that in there? It's probably not absolutely brand new. So new without tags is usually, I don't put a lot of credence in that. I'm like, all right, it's probably not brand new, but it's in good condition. Excellent used condition is EUC, and that one to me, I feel like is honestly the most trustworthy. Like that's the most honest, like, yeah, it's great. It doesn't have any stains. It doesn't have any holes. It doesn't have any, anything wrong with it, but I have used it. Like to me, usually if I see EUC, I trust the seller more than NWOT. Along the same lines as good used condition, you have to be pretty honest if you're gonna be like, yeah, it's got a little pilling, it's got a little this, a little that. And then sometimes you will see in all caps flaw, which means there's something visibly wrong. A lot of times sellers are trying to sell that or position that as like a project piece. So you see it probably more with like furniture and housewares, but you will sometimes see it, especially like with designer bags and stuff like that. They're still trying to sell their Louis bag, but it's got pen mark on it or something like that. That one you don't see very often. And then there's a couple other phrases we talked about in the last post: boutique versus closet. Still, I would avoid boutique sellers. I know that's probably not every single boutique out there, and maybe I'll get some comments about people who run boutiques on Posh, but I have not had a good experience with them in the past. So I would really stick to closet sellers. And then pit to pit, which is a phrase that when I first started I was like, what in the world? I guess people don't want to say chest. I don't know. Is that an internet taboo word? But pit to pit is the measurement, like literally from armpit to armpit if something is laying flat. So it's basically whatever your measurement is across your chest, in half. So it's laying flat. And a lot of times measurements on Poshmark are laying flat, so it's half of whatever your actual measurement is, but they will note that usually if they know what they're doing. Again, these are all humans. This is not a corporation. So sometimes it's better to ask. And then you'll also see things from pet-free, smoke-free, and clean homes, which I always laugh at because, as you just saw at the beginning of this video, there are always dogs in my life. But my house is clean, and I'd like to think my things don't just reek of dog. But yeah, that is always for those sellers who don't have dogs, don't smoke. That is kind of a marketing thing for them. So it's not a red flag. It's just a note about the odor that could possibly be, or I guess if you have allergies. So tip number 4 is a little more niche, and that's about the luxury market. So like I said, one of my first ever luxury purchases for myself was through Poshmark. And I would say when you're shopping for a luxury item on Poshmark, it's a great place to find things that are either vintage, or are really popular. Those are kind of like the two ends of the spectrum, either something that's everywhere or that's really hard to find. The biggest piece of advice with shopping luxury on Poshmark is to do your research, because most luxury brands have some tells, and there are so many videos out there that I'm sure you can go find what, makes a Louis Vuitton bag, how you can tell at a glance that a Louis Vuitton bag is really a Louis Vuitton bag, Gucci, all of those, they all have little tells. So just make sure you know what you're looking for there. A lot of times you can just tell by, especially if it's vintage, how the leather is aging. If it's really kind of papery and cracked, to me, that's a sign that it might not be legit. So do your research. Look for things like patinas, look for things like logos being aligned and not being cut off. And ask questions and review the photos really carefully. So you have the option before you even put in an offer or any kind of make any move on a listing to leave a comment and check and see on other listings with the seller if they're really responsive to comments. sometimes they're not. And that to me is always a little bit of a red flag. Like you're asking people to spend a lot of money on this thing that you're selling. Don't you want to reassure them? Give them some time to respond, but if they don't respond at all, it's probably a bad sign, especially if you're going to be spending, $500, $600, $700 with them. Review the photos really carefully. Like I said, that's how you can kind of snuff out some of those sketchy listings out there. If a price is too good to be true, like if you're looking at a brand new Louis Vuitton Speedy for $400 and it's in perfect condition, be realistic. That's probably not a real Speedy. Which brings me to my next point. Something to bear in mind is that anything over $500 on anything, not just in the luxury market, anything on Poshmark that's over $500 has to go through a verification process with Poshmark. So shipping will be a little bit slower, but you have the peace of mind knowing that if you're buying Gucci loafers, there has been someone, a human at Poshmark, who has intercepted the package, reviewed it, made sure that it is what the seller says it is, and then shipped it on to you. So slower shipping in the luxury market, but worth it. So also as you're scrolling things and you see things that are like $485, and it's something that should definitely be more than $485, that's also a red flag that they just don't want to go through the verification process. But if you see something that's $515 and it should be around $500, that's a little bit of reassurance that, okay, they're not scared of the verification process. This is a legitimate item. So all these little hints and tells. But the luxury market overall, I've not bought a ton of luxury. I've usually bought vintage luxury when I have, but it's definitely worth it. And I found some really cool pieces for decent prices and in varying levels of condition, but most of them have been in really good condition, or at least the condition that I would expect for a vintage piece that was going for a lesser rate. So tip number 5 for me, and this is one that I think in the world of Amazon and Walmart and Target and everything being a big corporation and you get it basically as soon as you click order, just to bear in mind is that these sellers are not corporations. Most of the time, 90% of the time, these are either small businesses, someone doing it as a side hustle, or someone not even doing it as a side hustle, someone just trying to get back a little bit of money on something that they bought and spent way too much money on. Expect that your sellers have a life. They probably are not doing this as a full-time job. Even if they are, a full-time reseller, they might still be doing it on the side. They have lives, they have children, they have families. So if something doesn't ship within 5 days, maybe then you reach out to them and like, hey, what's going on? But don't expect that, if you order something, and I did this the night before Thanksgiving, that they're gonna run out on Thanksgiving morning and ship it. I ordered something the night before Thanksgiving and the seller did message me and was like, hey, it's Thanksgiving tomorrow. And I do not expect you to ship out that denim jacket that I bought on a whim just because I was bored and scrolling my phone last night first thing in the morning on Thanksgiving. Like this, it's just not realistic. Just remember that these are humans. If you like something and are waiting for an offer, which we'll get into in just a second, don't get upset if you don't have an offer in 15 minutes. That person might be in a meeting. That person might be at the doctor's with their kids. They'll get to you. It takes a little bit more patience and just kind of that understanding that this is a marketplace. This is not a corporation. Also, and this is something that I go back to, and I don't know how popular this still is on the site. I think it's grown up a little bit since I was a seller. But don't get into these lowball offer wars. I can tell you from firsthand experience, I was selling something, and again, this was stuff I was selling out of my closet. This was stuff that was probably in excellent to good or good used condition. It was not, I was not doing the full reseller thing. So I was not selling stuff that was expensive. Like most of my stuff was between $20 and $40. And I would get people who would send me a lowball. Like let's say it was a $40 blazer because it was a $200 blazer when I bought it. Would send me a lowball of $10, and I would go down to 35 because I wasn't going to go all the way down. And then they send me back another offer of $8. Don't do that. That's wasting your time. That's wasting their time. That's making you look bad as a buyer. And you're not going to browbeat people into giving you something for nothing. I don't know where to tell you to go if that's what you're looking to do, but it's definitely not Poshmark. So be realistic. I mean, obviously, and I will tell you, most sellers, at least when I was doing it, price their stuff knowing that they're going to come down a little bit, but don't, 15, 20% is kind of the standard. 10 is really normal, especially if it's something in really good condition. Don't expect to get 50% off. Don't expect to get 75% off just because it's on Poshmark. People are not that desperate. And also, I would just say most sellers are honest. If you run into an issue with, and I've only had this happen once or twice in the 10 years that I've been doing this. If you run into an issue with an order, most of the time they'll try to make it right. And if they don't, and if they really are either scammy or just kind of a jerk about it, you can open a case with Poshmark. But 99% of the time, or at least go out the gate, give the sellers the benefit of the doubt. They're just trying to clear out their closet or have a side hustle or make a little money while they're taking care of their kids. So they're not most of the time. And like I said, I've been doing this 10 years and I've encountered very few scammy people. They will try and make it right. They will try and work with you. Give them the benefit of the doubt. Tip number 6 is something that I frankly do for any website that kind of makes it possible, but Poshmark is definitely one of them. Because these are people who are just selling out of their homes and they're not holding massive amounts of inventory that they need to move out at the end of a season, listings stay up year round. So if you are looking for a classic trench coat and you find a few that you like, and they're, let's say, in the $80 to $100 range, which they can be. Burberry would be more than that, but, let's say London Fog or something like that. I would create a search for that now and come back in, let's say, the middle of summer when truly no one is wearing a trench coat and no one is buying a trench coat. Because while those sellers are not looking to clear out all of their inventory, I can tell you that after a while you get tired of that old stock just sitting around, and like my stock was in the corner of my apartment, like where my couch and chair met. I just had a pile of clothes in poly mailers ready to go. And you want to clear that stuff out. So if you don't lowball, but if you ask for like a 25% or a 20% discount in the off season, and I am not making any promises, but you have a much better chance of that offer getting accepted, or maybe they bring you up to 15 or 20%. Because they want to get rid of that stock too. So if you can, if you're not in a rush, which you really should not ever be in a rush shopping Poshmark, because again, shipping is not like next day, definitely consider kind of shopping on the alternate schedule. So, looking for sweaters and jeans in the middle of summer, looking for swimsuits and shorts in the middle of winter is a really good way to get some pretty good deals. Again, not foolproof, not always going to be the way it is, not guaranteeing a thing in this video, but it's kind of an effective strategy, I have found. Which brings me to tip number 7, which is my biggest and most important tip, I would say, and really the reason why I'm making this video. And that is, if you find something you like on Poshmark, and I don't care if it is $500 or if it is $5, like it and leave it. Do not add it to your cart. Do not go ahead and buy it outright. Don't even send the seller an offer. Like it and then leave it. When I first started, every so often, if I forget who I am while I'm on Poshmark, don't follow this, especially if I see something that is either really unique, or I feel like a lot of people have liked it, or I've been looking for a long time to try and find something like this. I have the impulse buy thing comes in and I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm going to buy this. I'm going to submit an offer right now. Don't do that, because then you end up with a whole bunch of crap you shouldn't have been ordering, you didn't really want, you just got excited because it was new or different or whatever. Does this sound familiar? This is like Amazon impulse buy number 101. And as you're going through Poshmark, making an offer is not just an offer on your end, it is binding. So you click make an offer in the app and it takes you to a page for payment. It does not take the payment right away. It sends the offer to the seller, and if they accept it, then you're on the hook. So it's not just an offer. If you submit your offer on something, you are agreeing to buy it. I've been burned by that before where, I can't even think of a really good concrete example, but like jeans. I was looking specifically for a certain style and cut of Levi's jeans in a certain size. And I found like 4, and they were all reasonably priced. So for some reason, this was not that long ago, I guess blacked out and made offers on all of them and went from paying $25 for 1 pair of jeans to $100 for 4 pairs of jeans. So like it and leave it. Plus, if you submit an offer without waiting for what the seller is going to send to you, I have found, just in my experience, I don't know if this is me like wanting to be a goody two shoes or something, but a lot of times what the seller offers is lower than what I was going to offer. So I was going to offer, 15% lower than asking price, and the seller came back and offered 20% lower, or I was going to offer 10% lower and they were going to do 15. So wait for the seller. Sometimes the offer doesn't come, and at that point you either make the decision like, do I really want to buy from this seller? Is there another one who is willing to work with me? And then you can make an offer. But I would say shopping on Posh overall works best when you give it time. So what I usually do is I'll scroll and I'll just like stuff. Right now I am in the market for a Saison sweater. So I'll like everyone that I see that I like, and then I'll leave it. I don't intend to make a purchase that day. I wait and see what comes in. I give it a couple days. This is a waiting game. It's not Amazon where you add it to cart and have it at your front door in a day. And if you've liked something and someone else is making an offer on it, like you feel like it's going to be bought out from under you, Poshmark does send you an alert. They say, hey, an offer was just made. You need to get in there and make an offer. So I usually leave it about 24 hours or longer if I'm really not in a rush to buy something. But I feel like the most effective strategy is to like what you like, leave it alone, and wait for the seller to come back to you. And then you can take it from there. If you think the seller is still asking too high a price, like I said, don't try to lowball them, but you can try and bring them down a little bit. You can always counter offer on what they send you. If they send you an offer and it expires, usually what I do in that situation, which does happen a lot of times, and this is again why Poshmark is good if you are an impulsive buyer, or can be good. It can also be really bad because then you end up with 5 pairs of jeans when you meant to get 1. But if you leave an offer, or you like something and leave it and then forget about it, which I have done many, many times, and then you go back and you look at your offers and it's expired, because I believe seller offers are only valid for 24 hours. Just go back. There's an option in your screen to create new offer, and you can send them basically the same amount that they just sent you. And almost every time I've had that accepted. The one thing with that is you might lose free shipping. Sometimes the seller will include in their offer free shipping or discounted shipping. If that's the case, sometimes I'll knock my offer down $1 or $2 from what they offered to kind of compensate for that. But like it and leave it. If you take nothing else away from this video, that is my number 1 Poshmark tip. Like it and leave it. This takes time. It's not a quick, immediate gratification kind of a deal, but it's worth it. And following that strategy, have been able to get some really good deals and not spend all of my time and money on this app. Those are my top tips, my top 7 tips for shopping on Poshmark and finding really great deals on the things that you already love. So if you've made it to the end of this video, thank you for watching. I hope you found it helpful. And go ahead and leave a comment if you made it this far what your favorite Poshmark find has been, or what you think you could use Poshmark to look for in the future if you've not ever used it. And as you can tell from behind me, we are in the thick of the holiday season, so I have a bunch more holiday content coming up. This was just a little idea that I had to kind of break up all of the Jingle Bell content. So like and subscribe. If you enjoyed this video, go ahead and hit that bell so you never miss an update. And don't forget to leave a comment with your Poshmark best find or what you're looking for on Poshmark now. Thanks, y'all.